This is the first of many YouTube podcast series, and I wanted to start it off with you because me and you, I think, you're one of the people that I think I most connect with in terms of my kind of main goals and where I see things going, and a lot of my sort of visions and plans very much kind of line up with where you're heading, and you're really somebody who's like takes a lot of action on it as well. You've really been actually grinding and making things come to life, and the fact that it's all kind of coming to this point where you've got it pretty much prepared. And it's almost there, and that you're getting quite a lot of interest around it. I think now is a good time to kind of just go through it. Maybe we can talk a little bit about like how we first connected and some of the reasons why you're driven to work on this stuff, and then maybe we can go into like a little tutorial of the tool that you've put together.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Alex. Yeah, so I think we first connected in a Game B chat, and then ended up having a like 4-hour phone call right after, realizing that we like had the exact same vision of like, okay, we need to create new systems in order to catalyze action for creating impact and transitioning into new systems that are more win-win and that are more conscious, and how we can kind of use technology and media, and I think the things that both of us are passionate about, and where our kind of talents lie in order to create that change. And yeah, I guess I'll kind of tell a brief story about how I got to where I am with the kind of problems that I've experienced. So yeah, my background, I studied design and engineering, and I went to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. When I was there, I was part of this fellowship program called University Innovation Fellows. And part of the fellowship, our job was basically to take like an ecosystem approach and make a landscape canvas of the entire university. And our goal was to try to figure out where are the gaps in this sort of innovation ecosystem, where when students kind of come in to the university, what are the ways that they can and can't get involved with innovation, with thinking creatively, with entrepreneurialism, with starting projects. And what I found was that there was actually quite a few pieces and along the entire kind of process of, there's a lot of different clubs. There were 200 clubs at my university. There were actually a bunch of classes. There was even there was 2 entrepreneurship clubs. The problem was that nobody actually knew about them. And so there were people who were literally seniors that for 4 years didn't know that there was an entrepreneurship club on campus and wanted to start businesses. And so after doing a bunch of interviews and talking to students, realized this problem was not just within the innovation ecosystem, but just in general, that the amount of information and opportunities was overwhelming, and it was really hard for anyone to actually figure out like what is the big picture of what's going on and how do I get involved? How do I connect with people, projects, organizations, events that I'm interested in my limited time? And so what we ended up doing was creating this club called Ties, and it was basically an organization of human connectors. And our job was to basically create a directory of all of the different projects, startups, research professors, clubs, organizations, initiatives, map that out, and then and then table at different events and say, hey, like, what are you looking for? And literally just connected people to what they were looking for based off of our embodied knowledge and based off of the technical tools that we were building to catalog all this information. So it went really great, except I graduated 6 months later, and I kind of had another jump of realizing, okay, wait a minute, once you get out of this very rich, very busy college atmosphere, it's actually even harder when you go back and you move home to the suburbs, or you get a job in like a rural area, and you all of a sudden don't have a network anymore, and all of a sudden within a square mile there's not thousands of like-minded people. I'm like, wait a minute, this is actually even harder to find the others and to find out how to get involved with social impact work. So that's what basically started the work on a project called Catalist, which was basically an initiative to catalog information and then display it in a way where people would be able to connect with what they're looking for in order to catalyze action. And that project took many forms, many different prototypes, many different verticals. So I ended up creating a platform to connect people who went to innovation conferences with each other based off of their projects and their interests and skills, and demoed that at a few different conferences. Then ended up pivoting and starting to work on cataloging climate organizations after doing a pitch at a climate, like a UN climate conference. I realized like I actually had no idea what were the different pieces of the UN, and so I did this like midnight research, and I ended up creating a database of like 100 different UN or UN related organizations and like their websites and what they were doing and what they were about, and I was like who is doing this, and how can I take what I have basically curated and share this with others? And so that's what kind of sparked this doing some like curation work. And then COVID hit right as I was about to launch that project, and ended up taking everything that I had worked on and started building a custom tool, except changed the name from climate to just being COVID list. And so we made this site called covid-19list.com, which basically was a way to crowdsource the collection of information in order to connect people to the maps of what was going on, the COVID cases, how it was spreading, the best and most informational articles, the different organizations, and what help they were looking for. We ended up cataloging about 1,200 mutual aid groups across the globe. And that project ended up then leading into actually finding a mutual aid group on Long Island where I live, and then starting again, building another tool from scratch to basically, so alongside the Cooperation Long Island website, basically building a tool to matchmake volunteers with people who are requesting mutual aid assistance. And so doing this kind of needs requests offering, and then also allowing anyone in the community or any of the, like 15, 20 different nonprofits and organizations that were really closely working with Cooperation Long Island to basically collaboratively curate resources, opportunities, events, and then also be able to share those needs and offers across our networks. And so this kind of theme that I feel like has strung through all these different projects is this kind of need to connect information across silos in order to show people what's out there, to basically stop the duplication of efforts and encourage collaboration by design.
Right, right. That, I mean, yeah, that's I'm seeing a lot of a lot of a need for that, I think, and especially having gone down the sort of road of trying to sort of see how I can be gathering people together and getting them collaborating. I think I've certainly even for instance the Open Creative Alliance that I put together back at the beginning of the pandemic. What I thought was really interesting was that when you found that, you were like, "Oh my God, what is this? This is amazing! How are you involved in it?" And I thought it was great because it was kind of like, because you really fit the exact kind of person that would be geared for. Like you would be the ultimate like alliance member, because you've just you're coming into it with this realm of like orientation to action, be really thinking about like how we can be connecting people. And I guess I was coming from a very similar place in the sense that I saw all these people that were outpouring the need for they wanted to do something about this, but they didn't have a way of kind of connecting to the other projects out there, especially people in the creative industries. They might not see where they can fit in. They might not see what place they have, and yet to me I saw it as quite an important piece in the sense of like, how do we bring this information to a wider audience? So I saw that as being quite important to find other projects that are out there. But going through that as a practice, you do start to see these barriers of collaboration and these silos of where all that information is. And even there's plenty of resources that were created at that time, and I'm somebody who collects a shitload of content online as well, and I'm constantly kind of putting it into there. Is this useful? Like, am I gonna
Yeah.
need this again? And like some of it goes out of date as well. So and I think there's this very interesting interplay at the moment in terms of how we relate to information and how we find it, because I think at the moment it's very, we're all so used to these feed based ways of experiencing information, and the resources at the same time is useful, but knowing how, keeping that updated, taking the time to actually put in the metadata that's important can be a bit of a sort of high effort up front. And sort of defining whether that's actually going to be sort of useful and how that can be brought back is something that a lot of people are working on, and I think I've been sort of really exploring how to improve it in my my Notion table. But I think I've been very interested in like how to then redirect that information to the right people at the right time as well, so people can, as they need it, they have access to those resources, and ways of making it more of a collaborative thing as opposed to it being siloed. So I think we're in that kind of age at the
Yeah,
moment
yeah.
where we're going in this direction.
Yeah, so I think there's been a huge rise of this like a second brain, like tools like Notion or Roam that are like helping us. And this isn't new technology, like notebooks and just journaling, right? It's like helps us get information out of our head so that we're able to process it better, to remember things. And I think we have to start now going towards how can we, not just have a second brain, but also a collective brain. How do we start taking our knowledge and cataloging it in a way that can catalyze action for somebody else,
A third
as well.
brain.
Yep, yeah, exactly. Um, so, and one thing that, yeah, I've been just very personally, kind of not wanting to be on social media because I see what it kind of does to me and how I get caught up in this kind of like feed and like stream of constant notifications. But I feel like for me personally, it's like I need to be on there because if I'm not, there's no other way that I'm going to be connected to the opportunities that I'm looking for and that I need to get ahead. And so almost selfishly, I've been building this, for myself as well as a tool that I can get myself off of that kind of very addictive type of feed based platform and create things that are more going towards this like knowledge gardens that you get connected with exactly what you want when you want and not based off of an advertising company's quota that they're trying to meet. And so I guess that kind of goes into the project that I'm launching right now, that we just launched an alpha about 2 weeks ago, called Trove, which is really trying to take this concept of like a trove is a valuable collection or store of knowledge or things, opportunities. And so going from this idea of, yeah, like a stream and a feed of knowledge to a kind of firmament of knowledge, more similar to a Wikipedia, where it is collaborative and people are adding into it and it's a place that you go when you want to explore or discover, but adding on the social layer that makes it collaborative and also really user friendly. And so it's, basically combining the best of the kind of user experience that comes with using something like Reddit, where it's really collaborative and it's fun and engaging. But when you're doing that work, you're building something that is not just kind of getting lost and buried, and it's constantly going to be added onto in terms of not only the quantity of information but the quality. And so encouraging, when you create a post, treating it more as like I'm creating a resource, I'm adding a resource that I'm curating into this community, and I'm adding a comment onto it that other people can then add on, but other people can also just take that post and actually add more context. They can add tags to it, like different topics. They can say this is relevant and connect it to different communities. And so what you're doing is basically encouraging people to increase the quality of the data and the information in a way that is understandable by people, and is also semantically understandable by computers. And what that does is actually let you start to do what I've been calling like passive connection. And so if I say like I'm looking for events about regenerative agriculture in New York, and then people are not just posting a link to an event and say, hey, check out this event, but instead the cultural norm becomes like, hey, here's this event. And who would this be useful for? I think this event would be useful for anyone who's in New York and anyone who's interested in regenerative agriculture. And also, like, I'm going to tag these two groups. And those two groups don't have to get bombarded with a notification that you tagged them with a post. But because I'm looking for specifically what somebody else on the other side of the earth posted, and I want that notification, I'm going to get connected. And so it's also, how do we kind of create tools that respect our own kind of mental hygiene, and we can control the algorithms of how we get connected to information. And so Catalyst is the kind of like the broader initiative of tools that will kind of to be used to passively connect people to what they're looking for, to kind of help them find their path. And this platform that we just launched called Trove is kind of like the community hub where the information is going. And we're very much treating it like a data commons for community that also allows you to share data not only inside your community, but across communities, and also inside of commons, like commons topics like climate change. So if there's 100 communities interested in climate change, if they add a climate resource, a new like platform design toolkit for climate resources and projects, and they add it to the kind of climate commons, then any community that also is a part of that will possibly get connected with that information if they want it. So the goal is really trying to create something that is useful not only for communities, but also for individuals to connect people to what they're looking for and help people find the opportunities, the projects, and the other people and communities that they're really, looking for, to find that alignment and to start creating action and collaborating and working together.
Well, there's also the fact that it's like, it becomes quite a social thing as well, in terms of like that becomes a way of keeping people connected is by sharing information with them. If you're connecting to people via information, and then you're sharing things that they to see whether they resonate with them, that is a way of kind of increasing those weak ties and making, building actual relationships by the fact that you're kind of finding something interesting. And then, I think especially if you're able to like really easily just put it to people without having to, at the moment, it's like, I find something, then I have to remember, like, where was our last conversation? Was it on Telegram? Was it on this? Was it on, there's like so many different messenger apps. So in that sense, like just being able to just quickly sort of, tag it with if I can do all of that within the same space, and just, give it the necessary information to be able to retrieve it, but also send it to the people that I think would resonate with it, almost being able to kind of create those groups of people more naturally. I think that's a massive way of moving things forward. And I know that even in the game B space, the piece you were talking about in terms of people, information getting lost. This is something that is seen everywhere from Slack and other platforms. But having the Game B community on Facebook, this was a topic that's come up time and time again. It's like, well,
Yeah.
there's really lengthy, interesting comments that people will take the time to explore certain things that. And none of it is able to get built upon. None of it is able to sort of evolve. Which I think,
Especially if it was a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one's gonna scroll back that far.
Exactly, but it's
Unfortunately.
so like there's so much, that's work, that's people, that's really, some of them are thinking it through, some of them are really tying things together, or making interesting connections. And I recently posted up one of the videos on Rome research, because this is something that I've been sort of looking at. Is like, how do you sort of enable this network thought, kind of multiplayer way, and enable us to build these kind of collective knowledge graphs that people can that we can sort of build upon. So I'm interested to see how these, I think there is a fundamental kind of issue around interoperability with some of these, but I'm hoping that like the way in which things are going at the moment, it's usually, there is more of an orientation towards having it accessible across platforms. And I'm hoping that, if there's stuff like this that comes out, and it's one of those things where there's an incentive to be connected and have it interoperable. I think as more people are going to be looking for that, then there's the possibilities just kind of amplify.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to touch on interoperability, but just one other point. Um, so that post that you made on Facebook, I actually saw it, and I wanted to read the article, and so I hit the little like save for later. But the interesting thing is, I've actually never went into the saved things like posts in my Facebook or Instagram. It's actually like 3 or 4 clicks away to even get there, and then it's so
Yeah, it's super
it's
inaccessible. It's
it's
so
not
inaccessible.
designed to make you so it's not designed to make you go back to look at the things you wanted to see. Like as soon as you get on the app, actually yesterday I went on Instagram and it showed this really cool diagram of like something that I had been sketching out, like of like a basin of attraction, and then it just like disappeared to the bottom. And I was like, wait, where to go? And I literally spent 20 minutes scrolling all the way through my Instagram to try to find it, and I couldn't find it. Like it's almost like it was designed to make you just like constantly
Next
scroll
thing, yeah,
through.
yeah,
And so like when you
totally.
get on, you're immediately presented with new information. And so one of the kind of things that I'm hoping to, yeah, turn on its head in the actual design of the tool is like, if I favorited something that I wanted to watch or read 3 months ago, show it to me again and say, hey, this was, out of the hundreds of thousands of things that you've seen and scrolled past, if you saved 100, wouldn't it be better to encourage people to read those 100 things and then not just like constantly? It's like we're running around chasing our tails. We're not getting
Mm.
anywhere. And so that's like one thing I think that we really vital is like helping people. And this is not just with content. This is how do you, by design, encourage and incentivize the quality connection with content and people that you already know of, but you just are not, you don't have the time, you don't make the time to do it because you're caught up in this constant like novelty seeking. It's a bit of an addiction, I think. So like instead of me, just because it's like kind of hard for me to put a time on your calendar, I might just scroll through Facebook at other people's information instead of like having a higher quality conversation with you. And that's not because it's not what I don't want. It's because like my attention is being hijacked. And so I think like bringing intentionality into these tools is really important. And that kind of, I guess, leads me to like the interoperability piece, which is like um, one of the KPIs, like the key performance um, indicators and like measures for success for Trove or for any of the tools that I work on. I hope is to minimize the amount of time on site and to basically maximize the amount of connections that people want in the least amount of time spent using the technology. So how can we use technology to get us off technology? And I think that's not going to be done ever by one tool. And so I'm sure there's a bunch of people even listening to this that are project founders or stewards of other tools, and many of which that I've been speaking to and trying to figure out how can we work together and kind of create this ecosystem of tools that can collaborate to make the sort of Facebook model, monopoly model, a bit obsolete. How do we think about really like data schemas and open wisdom commons is another, like, in order to basically um, make it so these tools on a technical level can actually interoperate. And then also, I think what like the work that you're doing in like changing culture is like we also need this like social and cultural foundation to be able to collaborate. Like even if our tools work exactly together, even if we have like the same exact data structure and everything, there's this like additional labor of like, but we have to like compete to like get our piece of the pie. And how I see it is like, especially in the sort of like regenerative world, like we need everyone to start thinking about how to regenerate the planet. We need that pie to grow. So we need to be working together to figure out how we grow the pie of getting everyone on the planet to start to think about transitioning our economy into something that is regenerative and that is also decentralized in that we are promoting more, you know, economic equality, how can we kind of just grow the pie in general and then give that pie to the commons instead of trying to fight over a shrinking piece of it, so to say. So this idea of having, yeah, different kind of data commons, and also in creating tools that are interoperable is really important. And I definitely don't, my vision is not to replace Facebook or replace Slack or replace, um, any of the other tools, great tools that are out there already.
Yeah, but I mean,
Um,
even to like, even by the fact that you're working on this stuff and putting it out there, I think it changes the understanding of what's possible, and I think personally, I think there's a lot of potential for tools like this to actually compete with Facebook, not necessarily compete, but at least sort of present something very different that could, because I mean, like, even hearing what some people have been saying, how a lot of them have been saying they've been looking for this, because there's so much of an exodus from Facebook, and people kind of are looking for other alternatives. And I think it's when those alternatives are there, I think people will move to them. And I think especially around the piece in terms of data ownership, I think we're in for a fundamental shift very, very soon in terms of how we interact with our data, and how how these business models are setting up, because it's going to disrupt these business models that have been around for a while now, and like quite
yeah.
ingrained, and trying to the disconnect there, and then sort of creating new connections is going to be a very interesting moment in the tech world, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think one thing is, how do we, there's a question that I've been asking myself, is like, how do we kind of use the best of the tools that currently exist in order to kind of fuel the transition, so to say? And so, for example, one of the tools that I recently built, was very simple, like a Telegram or a Slack bot, where you know, I have a bunch of channels, that groups that I'm in, that have like a resources channel, and it's just hundreds of posts of these like incredible projects and links, and but it's just organized by the recent date, and no one ever goes through and scrolls back all the way multiple times to try to find something, or it just gets buried. And so, for communities that want it, that are kind of in the initial kind of alpha tests, so we have the Catalist bot listening into the resources channel, and people could use Slack, that's fine. But if they add a resource to the channel, um, it'll get automatically added into a data commons, where that resource is now in this almost kind of like wiki of tools, resources, projects that anyone could go back into and can filter, search through it, and find what they're looking for, and also to collaboratively add to that resource, connect it to people, and that data can be sent to, obviously, like Trove, the Trove platform, but it could also be sent to Wikipedia, somebody's Notion, somebody's Airtable. So being able to kind of um, you know let information go where it needs to go in order to do the work we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, I think even me and you have both kind of spoken about the need, especially in these spaces of people that are trying to do big, audacious things, who are trying to solve some of the big problems. We're all suffering from very much the same issues. There's definitely that siloed aspects of people working on their own little thing and not being able to collaborate with somebody else. And you're absolutely like, so that kind of the combination of our inability to sort of coordinate and collaborate with the tech environment that is constantly getting us to sort of seeking novelty and distracting people. I think those two combined create like a very kind of big challenge that sort of, to me, underpins the sort of the other challenges above that, in the sense that we've got to figure out a way of like coordinating ourselves and actually working together, like you said, and making it so that we're not we're not duplicating our efforts, and we're actually moving into a place where we're setting aside our egos perhaps, and being able to work together. Because I think when it comes to our purpose and what drives us, we need a way of being able to organize ourselves and be able to define what is most important, what is where there needs to be almost a bit of a hierarchy in terms of what should be some kind of focus, and we almost need a bit of a kind of governance to figure that out, or at least some kind of way of doing it, because we don't necessarily have the market to be able to completely rely on for that. So yeah, it's definitely one of the meta problems that we like to call
Yep.
underpinning this all.
Yeah.
But
Collaboration and I think ownership is like just this very interesting. There's a shift happening, but we're still in this kind of liminal stage where I think it's it takes some like personal work to be able to be like, okay, I'm gonna take this, database of 1,000 different startup funding resources, for example, that I've curated over the last few years, and just put it out into the commons versus keeping it in my private database where it's not actually helping anyone, and not doing anything. And so, like, I think it's how do we also encourage that by saying, like, okay, we do need to recognize people for the work that they do. And so, like, Facebook is like, people do all this work posting on Facebook, and Facebook is kind of just extracting it. And so I think it's like, okay, how do we encourage people to, like, um, work collaboratively and also get rewarded for the contributions that they've made, and make that kind of part of the culture too, to like have this like gentle reciprocity where you are kind of helping others and getting help in return. um, so there's a lot of interesting design decisions that come along with trying to create that culture, right? So anything from if somebody curates a resource, kind of them being tagged as like a curator of it. If somebody kind of improves the quality and adds a tag to something, them being like an editor. And then if that resource is really valuable and a bunch of people get use out of it, being able to also kind of share, whatever the currency of the platform might be, being able to kind of compensate people for the work that they've done to be able to connect people to opportunities. I think a lot of the connectors and the community builders, they're not recognized for their work, and it's so important and so vital, right? So how do we also do that? How do we? There's so many, I guess, different groups that do a lot of amazing, incredible work and don't really get. There's no easy way to get compensated for it. So that's something I'm interested in thinking about too.
yeah, there's some huge potential, I think, once we can start be bringing in some of these tools that can facilitate that, and those are like very ready as well. They're maybe not necessarily a sort of easy plug and play at the moment, but I think it's not long before these kind of things can be easily kind of weaved in. So I think there's a lot of potential in terms of how we create interoperable reputation, and are able to actually kind of have some way of defining who's done what, and but at the same time not get too sort of like specific into the tiny little minute details. I think that's an important thing to
Yeah.
avoid. Um, but yeah, it would be good if, I think now might be a good time to maybe jump in, because I think we can probably talk about some of these big possibilities and things with where it goes. But I think it'd be cool if you can give a bit of a tutorial going through it, and I can walk through some of it as well if you need me to test anything out.
So the domain name will change, but I'm just going to jump right in and show you guys what the dashboard of the Trove platform looks like. So the mission is to help on two sides. On the community end is to help communities build collective intelligence and coordinate collective action. And on the end of kind of individual change makers, it's to be able to help find their path to communities, people, projects, events that will help create action, work on things that you're passionate about, and just find out what's going on in a big picture, and really just stay in the loop. And so right now, this is the kind of initial dashboard, which just kind of has like the main like call to action items. So you have a profile. Each person has a profile. You also have you can have like different like saved projects, saved events. So really encouraging you when you first go in, not to just get lost in a stream, but just to have like intentionality between what you want to do, whether it's to like go to your groups, um, or to actually start exploring some of what's on the platform. So I'll show you the projects explorer. So let's say you wanted to like see what projects were out there. So how the projects work, and this is also across kind of all the different types of data on the platform, is that each project has its own privacy permissions. So a project can be either public, in which case anyone going on the site, even if you're not logged in, even if you don't have an account, can see that project. If a project is restricted, then when you're logged in, you'll see it only if you're in communities that person who posted that project is in. And so it's a way to find the projects that are kind of close to your circles. And then any project that is private can be shared with specific people or people in specific communities. And so the projects each have their own basically little like cards. You could see at a glance what each project is about, the sort of different what I'm calling commons, so like sustainability, collective action, and you can also filter and search for projects based off of things that are in your profile or that are relevant to each page. So right now, the main filters are by skills. So for example, if you're a software engineer and you want to look for projects that might need your help, you can see all the different projects that are looking for software help. You can also, based off of different kind of like main categories, see like, okay, which projects are looking for like a team, and are looking to find other people. And so filtering is one of the first steps in kind of like how do we put the power in the hands of the user to find what they are looking for and to kind of be able to control the algorithm. And so very much kind of trying to use this like filtering, sorting, find what you're looking for, instead of feed-based approach. But we have the ability to basically take this information and show it in many different views, depending on the context. And so for projects, there could eventually be a feed where if there's thousands of projects and it's overwhelming to post in this kind of like curated way, then you can have a feed of projects, but you would be able to kind of control exactly what you see in that feed. So there's also a kind of like long view. That's awesome for if you're on like a really big screen to see what's happening. And there's also a map view where you can zoom into your area and try to find projects that are local to you. So I'm in Long Island. I made a project for Catalist on the platform. So I'll show you what that one looks like.
So can you filter on the
Yep.
map as well? You can
Yeah, the filters, and
find
also
different
I just
people.
searched. So that was a search just by name. So the filters and
Mm.
the search works across. So right now it's showing only one project. So the filters and the search work across all of the different views. Okay, so yeah, basically you could favorite a project if you want, and then it'll add it to your saved projects, and you'll be able to
Nice.
basically stay updated. And you can also go to the project page. So each project page, each project has their own page with their own kind of URL. And so this is something that I've seen a lot amongst like early initial projects where they're so early on, they don't even have their own website. So this is also like a really cool way for a project when it first gets started to have a bit of a landing spot to be able to, you know, have a home for that project in terms of updating some basic information, keeping people in the loop. And each project page has this kind of like modular approach of, okay, so you can add opportunities. So this is like all the different help that we're looking for, what skills we're seeking. And so this is a big piece in this like collaborative design is like, okay, what is this project open to? So we're open to like merging projects with other ones or federating our data or being part of different cooperatives. And so when you're looking for, if you are a project owner, you'll kind of get shown projects that are similar to your project that are open to merging efforts. And so it's a way to kind of help people find each other, but on their own terms. So then there's different, yeah, thank you. So project categories, there's different relevant communities. And so this project will show up in all of these different communities' dashboards, as well as in the kind of like public project explore page. And then each project also shows the different project members. So a pretty easy way to basically like figure out how to actually get in touch with people. And so this is the profile, which similar to the project, it has different privacy permissions. So it can be either public, restricted to people in your communities, or private. And each project and each link on your profile also has that level of detail and privacy. So one thing that even we were experiencing as a problem today is like, hey, send me your Zoom link, or like, you know, what's your email again? It's like lost in my Facebook chat. And so I have this basically list of links on my profile where my Telegram is shown by anyone who is my friends on the platform. My Facebook or my email is shown by anyone who's in my kind of communities. And then there are things that are like my portfolio or my LinkedIn profile that are public, where anyone who finds my profile will be able to see those links. And then within the kind of about, you also are able to specify like your preferred contact methods, so people know like what is, if I want to collaborate with Vincent, how do I actually how do I get involved? And then the different projects that you're working on as well. And later you'll kind of have the ability to add like your project opportunities and like what help you're looking for here as well. And so I'm gonna go to basically probably the main piece of the platform is the community hubs. And that's what we've been working on the most. And so I'm going to go to Kiko Lab, which is the Collective Intelligence Collaboratory. So they're one of the first communities that started using Trove for trying to catalog their members, having a member directory, a project directory so people can figure out what's going on, and then also a shared event calendar and a call repository. And these are all kind of like modular features that each community can choose to turn on or off depending on their needs. So at a glance, the homepage kind of has a summary of the new members, upcoming events, project opportunities. But the real kind of main part is really like the intention of these like different community directories. So the member directory basically lets you also similarly search by people's name or filter by skills that you're looking for. And similar to the project directory you guys saw before, you can change the view from having like a card layout or having a map view of the different members. And you can filter by, let's say, software, and I'll show you that it seems like the West Coast has most of the software people. And you can also search, and it'll show you a little preview of someone's profile. So these are my offers, my skills, and you can go to someone's profile and figure out how to contact them there. Then any projects that are shared with the community will basically show up here. Um, and you're able to change the view. As more projects are added, then more filters will be kind of turned on. So like after 50 projects, you'll be able to filter by location. After 100 projects, you'll be able to filter by like categories and like topics. So we're trying to kind of keep the design really clean, and in the back end have all these abilities to basically just like modularly, in a modular way, turn on different filters to deal with complexity as it emerges.
That's really cool. I really like that approach because I think that's one of the main things is that everyone experiences these kinds of platforms in very different ways, and being able to have some, there's always that trade-off of simplicity versus control and features. So by having that sort of approach to it, I think is really good. That totally that totally allows for anyone to sort of like slowly evolve something as opposed to and learn as they go, as opposed to just having to sort of have a big learning curve. That's the smart way to
Yeah,
do it.
exactly. It's definitely harder to do it that way, but I think it'll pay off because um, I've been trying to design for the last few years tools that can be used by my mom. Basically, if it passes the mom test, then it's go. And so I think when it comes to like open source projects, right? Like um, I the concept of open source to me, I think should be taken a step further because open source is really only open for people who know how to code and who also have a certain level of tolerance to like user interface. Because if there's an open source project
Mm.
that doesn't have much thought or effort put into the design, like that's most of why people use a tool. And so trying to build tools that anyone can use that are very kind of intuitive and that also people with a non-technical background are able to interface with and collaborate with and build on top of is really important. Yeah.
Yeah, very much agree. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good
so
point.
this is the basically communities like event calendar, and the cool thing is that these events can be not only in one community's calendar, but can be in basically across 5, 10 different communities. And so this is a filtered view of all the events that are either hosted by Kiko Lab or that are relevant to this community. And you can filter by the kind of different topics like design. Um, or sustainability. You can filter by like a date, like if you're trying to see what's going on this weekend. Um, and then you're also able to directly add, anyone can add an event and be able to share it with multiple different communities, with multiple different like networks, and you can change the privacy permissions of each event. Um, and you can also create reoccurring events as well. And the call repository. So this is something that Lauren, Nignon, and Charles um, from Kiko Lab have been really working really hard to establish is this like call repository of all of their different notes. And so we've been collaborating on basically taking this information and then making it actually visible and embedded inside of the community. So it's really easy to like when you're in the community to not just always be focused on the new thing, but to go back and like, rewatch and see the kind of call summaries and be able to have a quick link to the meeting recordings and to find the kind of like golden bits of nuggets that came out of all of the work we've done in the past and not just be focusing on like kind of just running ahead to make the next call instead of actually taking action from the previous things that we've done and the previous things that we've learned. And so that's something that I'm hoping other communities as well will to kind of take the lead of what Kiko Lab has been doing and try to take this practice of curating their content and the learnings that they've had and kind of adding it into this commons where anyone can access it.
So is this managed by Lauren and Kiko Lab? Like, are they the ones who are adding in
Yes,
the information?
yes.
Okay. And do they do that through via sort of Airtable, or do they do it sort of directly into Catalist? Like, do they have to upload things, or is it more of a case of, they're just putting
So
all the
we
data there?
started, and the great thing about Airtable is that it's something that's people are pretty familiar with, and it has a lot of power. And so this right now, these calls are all being curated in Airtable. Um, Lauren has a team of people who are helping basically take the information from a different type of like a kind of more of a Google Doc into an Airtable database. And so as this database is kind of very repeatable and the data structure gets a little bit more solidified, then we'll be building a kind of even easier way to, like, after an event is over, just go to that event page and upload the recording and then have it kind of added into this repository. And so right now we're kind of like building off of a lot of no code tools to be able to get things done and start to, have this work be out there. And in the future, we'll be building tools that are even more kind of streamlined, that have an even better process and a better experience for people to kind of collaboratively do this work. A lot of people don't like spreadsheets, and so making it really easy to, like, change the view and be able to let anyone edit a call, upload a video recording, add topics. So maybe I'll go to the events page and show a bit of how that might work. So basically, this is the kind of repository of, like, all the different events that have been posted on the platform that are either public or, because I'm logged in, that are shared with me or my communities. And so similarly, you can change the different the views. You can filter by the available event types. If you're not in a mood for a Zoom, once we start kind of adding in a bunch of Clubhouse rooms, you'll be able to find Clubhouse rooms, conferences, Zoom meetings, and you can also filter by the different categories, the date, and then I'll go to the Systems Innovators page. So this is one of our Clubhouse one of our Clubhouse events that everyone should definitely check out if you're on the platform. Tuesdays at 4:30 Eastern. And so once an event is over, anyone who's kind of an admin of that event will be able to then add information to this event to kind of add it into that repository. And for any future events, right now you have the ability to add it to your Google Calendar, and to be able to edit it as well if it's an event that you've created. So let's see if there's an event.
So it's a one-way integration to the Google Calendar, right? You send it to the Google Calendar, it doesn't sort of go back and forth.
So this particular button is a one way. We'll just add this
Mm-hmm.
event to your Google Calendar,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's just a
Yeah.
really easy way,
Cool.
similar to how kind of Clubhouse does it. Just like, all right, put this on my calendar so it reminds me of it. Um,
Yeah.
and the ability to, like, sync up with a Google Calendar, and when you make edits, it edits it on the event page on the platform. That's something that's probably like a month down the road in terms of our development timeline. But
Yeah.
this is like a super easy way to just kind of get started to get people to be, attending different events and putting things on their calendar. But we do have the ability to basically, on a by community basis, like, pull from their community's calendar into the shared calendar, and then be able to add on top of those events, to add different communities, to add categories, add types, so to make those events more findable, and not just, when you have like a bunch of shared calendars, it's just like 100 events on your calendar. Um, so yeah, because this event is happening right now, the join link is available, and you can also go to the event page. Even though it's
Even though it's
not
not
actually
actually
happening
happening
because
right
we're
now.
postponing it.
We're postponed. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. It is happening. It is happening. It's just not happening today. But it's a good example. The fact that we have this up is
Yep, exactly.
quite
So
useful.
yeah, right now, so this event has like the website, event agenda, and then you can edit the event if you're the one who created it. So you know what? Here, Alex, I'll add you as an organizer. Um,
Oh, great.
so yeah, basically you can put different hosts, co-hosts of different communities, and um, you can also add communities that you want to share the event with that would kind of like want to see it. Um, and so yeah, each event, each project, each profile, each community has their own page. Um, and I guess kind of like the last piece is I guess the I guess we'll go to the dashboard and just show a bit of our timeline.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and then once you've kind of showed this last piece, we can kind of do a bit of a wrap up as to what's your kind of next steps and what you might need some help with and things like that.
Yeah, that'd be great. So yeah, I've been working hard to kind of also incorporate into the design a really easy way to get people who are really passionate about the work that we're doing involved in it, and also to be transparent about how we're developing and trying to kind of put like the hundreds of hours of these sort of like ethical conversations about creating social technologies, putting that out there and letting people see it and letting people also add to it and engage. And so to start, we have a kind of like frequently asked questions where we're starting to put out like, all the information about how data is treated, how can I download my data, who you work with, who's behind the platform. And then we have our like features and changelog. So like all the different features that we just launched in the last few weeks. And we also have basically a list of features that we're working on that anyone could go in and say, yep, I want to like upload that feature, um, or add a question, add a comment, add a discussion, start a discussion, add an update, or even like a feature request, or an issue or a bug right here, and then this will basically go into the changelog. And we also have a kind of community on the platform for new members to start to kind of like discuss how it's being built and working on figuring out exactly what our legal structure is going to be, whether or not it's going to be a nonprofit or a cooperative, is still up for debate. But definitely, we know that there's going to be like multiple levels of kind of ownership and governance in terms of users of the platform, community members, which are really like our key partners, like people who are, instead of trying to build their own platform, helping us grow and working together, are going to be like key stakeholders and also involved in the governance of the platform and partial ownership as well. And then obviously the people who are working on it, the advisors, the founders. How do we kind of like make it in a way that it makes sense for everyone, and focus on not growth, but and not like quantity of users and communities, but quality. Like, how can we create these like initial clusters of communities that are able to really synergize and help each other, and kind of get over this problem of like, I'll go to the communities explorers, I guess, to wrap up. So like what I see so much is like I go on Facebook, I join a community of software engineers, and they're all looking for artists, and then a community of creatives are all looking for technical people to help with their projects. And so our I guess our strategy is to focus on initial like clusters of communities in the social impact space, design being one, regenerative agriculture and like climate being another, and then collective intelligence and kind of like systems thinking being a third. And I think even those three clusters of, I guess, networks alone, being able to interconnect, I think will be able to help each other work on projects where they have shared values but complementary skills. And so being able to, um, instead of having to join 100 Slack groups because you're like, well, I need help from a software engineer, I'm gonna have to just join all these software groups to like get help, or like, I'm looking for resources for this, I'm just gonna have to join this group. Well, you can be in your kind of close communities, but then be connected to other communities that have the kind of complementary processes, skills, people that you're looking for to collaborate with.
Cool, amazing. This is super exciting. It's actually amazing seeing this version. I've only, it was only like maybe like a week or so ago that I saw it, and already it's like, there's all these extra
Yeah, thanks.
little
Yeah,
pieces and
I had a
favorites
feeling it would
and
be
like buttons. So yeah, it's
a bit of a
amazing
jump, which is
the
good.
sort of speed of progress
Been
that you're
making
making with
progress
this.
pretty quickly.
Yeah. Totally, totally, and I think it's really bringing an important tool to some of these communities. And I think by the way in which they're so interconnected already, there's I think one of the things I've almost noticed about sort of getting into these online communities that are thinking about these large scale problems and issues is that you begin to start seeing the same people come up time and time again. You start, there starts forming these mutual friendships and things like that, which I think is very unique, and I haven't really experienced that in too many places on the internet when there's separated communities or people will come from different places. And to me that kind of feels a little bit like finding the edge of the internet a little bit, and sort of finding this nice little kind of group of tribes. So I think by having this coming out at this time, I think is a really sort of ripe for the moment that we're living in. So yeah, it's going to be super exciting to sort of see it grow, and I'm looking forward to kind of helping in pitching it and putting it forward. And just in terms of like, is there any sort of things that you're
Yeah,
looking
I
for any sort
think
of specific people
there's a few different
at
kind
the
of key
moment that,
areas
that might
where
be able
in
to
the
help on
short
this
term
in
it would be
terms
really
of
helpful to
the
collaborate
development?
with others and to also bring other people on who want to start working on the project more of kind of full time. So one is, I guess, in the kind of marketing, social media, creating content, in which this has been super helpful as like a first step in starting to kind of get out there, right? Been focusing so yeah, check. Been focusing so much on the development, but definitely looking for as much help as we can get with that. With starting to create events in order to um, I think alongside a lot of the events that happen in this kind of space are this particular subtype of events, which is like collaboration events. Like people, hey, come share your project, share what you're working on. How can we connect? This has been a huge like centerpiece of our Systems Innovators Club. It's what we're going to be doing at the Changemakers Consortium, and a lot of other communities have been hosting these kind of events where people can see the big picture and what's going on. And so helping with planning and managing those events, or people who can kind of like go into events, virtual or in-person conferences, and like start to curate or help people curate themselves these projects in order to make sure that like after the conference people actually have actionable items and things to do. It's like, okay, after the conference, here's the project, here's the event page, and here's all the projects that presented at that conference and what they're looking for help for as a quick little summary. And then you have people's contact information. You could go right to their profiles. And so I think the power here lies in the kind of like ecosystem of these different pieces working together, right? Like having not having the the event page be something you go to just to sign up and then never go there again. Having that then tie into the kind of commons of knowledge and tie into the tools that are used to connect people to opportunities to get involved. So definitely with the kind of like event planning, and then obviously software and design help as well, as we're going to be kind of, yeah, I'm sure growing different communities that are looking for these sort of tools that want to give it a go. It would, yeah, be awesome, especially if you're kind of in the game B space, because you'll probably be able to get a lot out of seeing the different communities that you might be like kind of fuzzily connected to, and now get a clearer picture of what they're working on and how to connect. And um, I think the yeah, the last thing is definitely advisors for the kind of like ethical and governance development of the platform, making sure that we build in the right way, make sure that the business model, which I didn't mention, will definitely not include any sort of like data selling or ad targeting or targeted advertising, making sure that there is a sustainable business model behind the platform, even if it's a nonprofit, so that we don't have to rely on strings attached funding or grants. We are going to be basically doing a big search and like looking for grants in the next coming months over the summer to kind of start to gear up doing this stuff, and potentially a crowdfunding campaign. But yeah, I think before we do that, being really set on, okay, what is going to be the way that we do or don't monetize the platform, and you know, one of the main kind of goals for me is to be able to have enough of a kind of like revenue coming into the platform that we can basically put a big piece of that, any of the profits, kind of in this like commons pool, which then gets distributed to the communities and the individuals that are doing the curation and the connecting, and actually doing the work. Because just building the tool and then stepping back, like that's step one. The hard stuff comes with actually you know, doing the connecting, the curating, the mapping, and being able to, you know, do that quickly so we can start to find each other and and really work on the projects that are going to have the most impact into starting to tackle the climate crisis, tackle the, you know, epistemic crisis that Daniel Schmachtenberger talks about with his Consilience project, talking about the you know, economic situation we're in with COVID, and how to kind of make these projects work together, or at least see each other in a way that they can synergize and be able to start to work together to solve these problems and not in a like silo.
Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, this is you know, this is a bit of a call for me really to also sort of step up and start to sort of really add to this as well, because I know that there's a lot that I've been sort of mulling over for many years to that I think can certainly kind of feed into this, and hopefully I've kind of got some of those skills, at least in terms of the you know, putting it out there, and maybe some of the event stuff as well. I'm hoping I can bring a lot to this. And to me, it's one of those things where it really gives me a sense of kind of not only sort of hope, but also a sort of relaxation, in the sense that like, oh great, okay, like I don't need to go and, you know, try and sort of offload my brain to somebody else to try and come up with something like this, or try and develop it myself. You know, I was thinking around doing these kind of things in you know, in Notion and some of the other aspects, but I think, you know, having something that is custom and can be developed and added on, but also is able to kind of feed into these things at the same time, I think is fantastic. So yeah, I'm super excited to sort of see this kind of come together into that place in summer, because I
Yeah.
think it'll tie in nicely with a lot of
Yeah, I
with a
have
lot of other
one. I
stuff
have one
coming
question
from
maybe
the
before we wrap. So, um,
emerging
yeah,
spring
maybe you could share a bit about
spring of projects.
Once
So yeah,
Collective, and yeah, maybe how
cool.
you might see this fitting in
Please.
with
Yeah, no,
the
do.
kind of work that you've been doing, especially around um, the community aspect, and potentially the in-person aspect of
Mm.
things too. Um, yeah, I'd like to kind of hear a bit about your updates as well, and if there's any new ideas that have been floating around from this conversation.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because it's actually like, this is a bit of a clear example really of we're sort of facing this situation at this time where it's like, I've been in my little silo making something that I see as being really important, and you've been in yours, creating this. And it's one of these sort of challenges that we are finding in ourselves at the moment, is like, okay, well, there's it's undeniable that there's a synergy here, and that there needs to be some kind of
Yeah,
combination. And yet, even with, I think this is what sort of presents the kind of scale of the difficulty in the problem, is that even with this, it can still be difficult for us to not only synchronize in terms of having regular calls, or being able to like really align on certain things, or making decisions, or or sort of
yeah,
seeing how these parts can really fit together. What bits can be what bits can be cut, what bits can be combined, that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I think where I've been really looking at is in terms of the how to essentially build the community, the community
mm,
community aspect, in a sense that it will
yeah,
enable you to curate people based on their content. I see there being a really big potential in terms of, by the fact that even say we connected based off of content, based off of things that we were interested in. So being able, and to me, how that sort of fits into the physical world is that, if we're able to get this like really high level connection, that we're sort of working on the same frequency, we're paying attention to similar things, we're able to sort of find the signal in the noise from all these places, and have it that find these networks that are so specific to the way in which we see the world. I think there's going to be a real potential in terms of how you can start bringing some of that
yeah,
into the physical world, and start combining it, how you actually are able to I think, I mean, obviously the physical is kind of where I think it ends up, and that's obviously limited by where we are, and how we can move around and things like that. So obviously, like, to me, I am sort of paying a lot of attention as to how we might do this online, how we might build community online, how we might be able to sort of solve some of these synchronization problems, how we might be able to, actually, and I think that's where a lot of this comes in, is like, how do you share the information with each other in a fluid way? How do you bring data ownership to people? I think, to me,
yeah,
that's a really key aspect to what it is that I've been working on. All of the talk about people curation, it's based off of this opportunity that I see in terms of the development of tech that would enable people to be able to own their own data, and be able to use it in the right way. And then, but it's being able, but the problem with that is that it sort of enables solutions on a kind of horizontal way, so it doesn't necessarily kind of fit very easily into anything else. It's like, once you can get people into this place where they have full control over their full sovereignty over their data, and maybe and probably their identity as well, then you're able to really start building these connections. It stops being about how do we make sure that we're protecting our data from all these other companies, and instead allows us to actually see the benefits of what that could do for us, which I think is where a lot of this comes in, which is, how do you connect people to the projects that they need to find? How do you connect them to the people they need to find? So I'm sort of exploring ways in which we can be giving that use case to people, in the physical world or online. And yeah, in the efforts with
Yeah.
that, I guess I'm hoping to sort of try and solve the
Yeah,
same
I
issues
mean,
that you
that's
are,
where
which
I
is
started, like on campus, trying to
bringing together the people that
started
are
with some dinner
really passionate
parties,
about this
just
stuff
like getting like
as a kind of
20
initial
strangers
initial
together
group.
around the dinner table to talk about startups. That's what started the whole thing.
Mm.
Um, yeah. And yeah, I think like it's the kind of connecting based off of similar content is interesting. Like I probably
Absolutely.
would resonate more with less over like topics of interest like climate change and like more over the values of like how we actually go about thinking and talking and about solving climate change. So like for anyone who's like read Naomi Klein, I'm like,
Mhm.
yes, we connect on this fundamental level because we have this like shared understanding and like and values, right? So I think there's some really interesting things to explore there.
Yeah, because it's essentially like your digital, it's like a fingerprint, in terms of who what you've experienced online and what you've taken in, and I think that counts so much in terms of what knowledge we have, what skills we can bring to the table, and it really allows us to be able to connect with people. So I think if we're able to really take these fingerprints and help us connect with other people, then we're going to start seeing something that's really interesting. Obviously still useful to have people that are outside of those networks. It's still useful to be able to seek some kind of diversity. But I think by us going through this process of trying to understand what it means about us and our values, I think that would then enable us to really be connecting people on a far greater scale. So yeah, there's more that I could go into. I think in terms of how I see these two things fitting together, but I think from my point of view, it's like I want to be creating community, and yet it's around that kind of thing of like the purpose, the reason, what is bringing people together, and,
Hmm.
and all of that kind of stuff. Where I think there's you can be creating communities of every different piece of content, but we only have a finite amount of time. So in that sense, it's better if I can be creating a community that sort of serves multiple environments. So people that are going to be wanting to give feedback to you, people and to the development of Catalyst and Trove, and also you could do the same thing for Future Thinkers or Game B or any of these other ones in which they would benefit from having events or connections. And I think to me that kind of starts from something
Hmm.
like this, which is essentially the kind of connector between them, is that then we can be
Cool.
creating a
Yeah,
community
yeah,
that
no,
sort
that's
of sits
exciting.
in the middle and acts as the kind of glue. So yeah, that's I guess where I'm sort of hoping to really add to this. Sweet. Okay. Cool. I
Um,
think we're well over the
I
hour,
think
so
I think
maybe let's
I've said
let's
most
wrap
of
it
what
up. Anything
um,
final
I
to
would like to
sign
or
off
need
with?
to share at the moment. Yeah, I guess in closing, um, I would just say, yeah, we're like very open to people who probably have like how we met was like, hey, we have the like similar, very similar ideas, and so yeah, it's been interesting. I feel like I've connected with more people in the last year that are working on similar projects than any other like category of people. Like the people who I end up getting connected to or who I reach out to are people that are like, oh, they might be working on something similar. Let's see where there's synergy, which is great. But and now also, so yes, I'm continually going to be open to that. So if anyone's working on something similar and doesn't want to do it alone, reach out to Alex, reach out to me. Um, and then I think the other piece is like I definitely also am realizing it's probably going to be more helpful in the short term now that we actually have like launched to start focusing a bit more internally on building our internal team because the amount of like partnerships and like external facing connections that we have is like far outweighs the kind of like core internal team that's driving things forward. So looking for both of those, but now especially people who want to really collaborate, and potentially help working on a really cool ecosystem of social tools, and that are interested in learning a lot along the way. And I don't think you or I have all the answers. But the reason why I really love working with you and talking to you always is I think we're always there's this openness to being wrong and to completely kind of shifting trajectory. So having strong beliefs loosely held is that's my motto.